He laughed. Not a polite chuckle or a nervous deflection. A full, rich laugh that echoed across the marble lobby of Castellano Enterprises and landed on me like a slap. My name is Sophia Moretti, and I'm a fat girl who just walked into a Mafia boss's headquarters carrying the only thing that could save his life. The fact that he found that funny was about to become the worst mistake he'd ever made. I'd been standing in that lobby for 45 minutes. Security had patted me down twice, confiscated my phone, and made me wait on a deliberately uncomfortable bench while they confirmed my appointment. The receptionist, a woman whose makeup probably cost more than my monthly rent, kept glancing at me with barely concealed disdain. I knew that look. I'd seen it my entire life. The look that said I didn't belong in spaces like this. That my body was an offense to aesthetics. That I should be grateful anyone was even willing to look at me, let alone listen. But I hadn't come here to be looked at. I'd come here with information that Luca Castellano needed, even if he didn't know it yet. 2 weeks ago, my brother Marco had stumbled into our mother's house at 3 a.m, bleeding from a knife wound in his side and babbling about accounts, transfers, and names I'd only heard whispered in our neighborhood. Marco worked, if you could call it that, as a low-level courier for the Castellano family. Moving packages, delivering messages, staying invisible. But Marco had always been too curious for his own good. He'd started paying attention to the numbers. Started noticing patterns. And when he'd tried to warn his handlers that someone inside the organization was siphoning millions through fake vendors and offshore accounts, they'd tried to kill him. I'd patched him up in our mother's bathroom, the same bathroom where I'd learned to do my makeup in 8th grade while girls at school were learning to flirt. Where I'd cried after prom when my date had ditched me for a thinner girl. Where I'd taught myself to code because computers didn't care what I looked like. Marco had pressed a thumb drive into my hand, slick with his blood. Sophia, you're good with numbers. Better than me. Look at this. Someone's robbing Castellano blind and setting him up to take the fall for it. The feds are watching. He's got maybe 2 weeks before they move. Why do you care? I'd asked. He's a criminal, Marco. Let him fall. Because the person stealing from him is worse, Marco had gasped. Vittorio. His cousin. The one who runs the trafficking. The kids, Sophia. If Vittorio takes over when Luca goes down, those operations expand. I've seen the plans. I'd looked at the thumb drive. Then at my brother's face, pale and scared. You want me to warn a Mafia boss that someone's stealing from him? I want you to stop Vittorio from buying 6 more warehouses to move children through, Marco had said. Then he'd passed out. The data on that drive had taken me 4 days to fully unpack. Marco was right. Someone had been systematically looting Castellano's empire for at least 2 years, routing funds through shell companies, bribing officials in Luca's name, creating a paper trail that would lead federal investigators straight to him while leaving the real thief clean. And that thief was Vittorio Castellano, Luca's cousin and second in command. The evidence was meticulous. Too meticulous. Vittorio had covered his tracks with the kind of precision that suggested he'd been planning this for years. But he'd made one mistake. He'd used the same encryption keys across multiple accounts, and I'd spent enough time breaking corporate firewalls as a freelance security consultant to recognize patterns. I could prove what Vittorio had done. I could prove it in a way that would hold up in any court, criminal or federal. And I could deliver it to Luca Castellano before the FBI did. That's what had brought me here. Not heroism. Not some misguided sense of justice. But the knowledge that if Vittorio took over, children would suffer. And I'd spent my whole life being underestimated and dismissed. I knew what it felt like to be seen as less than human. I wouldn't let that happen to kids who couldn't fight back. The elevator finally dinged. 2 men in expensive suits emerged and looked at me like I was a piece of furniture that had been delivered to the wrong address. You're Sophia Moretti, the taller one asked. Yes. Come with us. Mr. Castellano will see you now. The ride-up was silent. They flanked me like I might try to escape, which was almost funny. Where would I run? We emerged into a hallway that screamed old money and new violence. Oil paintings of stern men. Marble floors. And at the end, double doors that opened into an office the size of my entire apartment. Luca Castellano sat behind a desk that looked like it had been carved from a single piece of mahogany. He was younger than I expected, maybe 35, with sharp features and eyes that missed nothing. Expensive suit. Gold watch. The kind of man who'd never had to wonder if people were judging his appearance because his appearance had always worked in his favor. Standing beside him was Vittorio. Older, heavier, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The man whose theft I'd come to expose. Miss Moretti, Luca said, his voice smooth and controlled. My men say you have information about my business operations. Information important enough to demand a personal meeting. I do, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Then speak, he said. But be aware that if you're wasting my time, or if this is some scheme to extort money, you'll leave here in a very different condition than you arrived in. I pulled out the copies I'd made of Marco's data. Printed spreadsheets. Account numbers. Transfer dates. I'd left the thumb drive at home, hidden, because I wasn't stupid enough to hand over my only leverage. Someone in your organization has been stealing from you for 2 years, I said. Roughly $8 million, moved through shell companies and offshore accounts. They've been doing it in a way that makes it look like you're the one laundering money. The FBI has been watching for 6 months. They're building a RICO case. You've got maybe 2 weeks before they move. Vittorio laughed. That's when Luca laughed too. Not cruel laughter. Amused laughter. The kind that said he found this entire situation absurd. Let me understand, Luca said, his mouth quirking into a smile. A woman I've never met walks into my office and tells me someone's stealing from me. Without proof. Without credentials. Without any reason for me to believe her. I have proof, I said, holding up the documents. And your men confirmed my credentials before they let me up here. I'm a security consultant. I've worked with corporations across the state. You're a computer person, Vittorio said dismissively. And you expect us to believe you've uncovered some massive theft that our own accountants haven't noticed? Your accountants are looking at what you show them, I said. I looked at everything. Luca leaned back in his chair, studying me. And why exactly would you bring this information to me? Because my brother works for you. He found out about the theft and they tried to kill him for it. He's the one who gave me the data. Your brother's name? Luca asked. Marco Moretti. Vittorio's expression flickered for just a second. Recognition. Guilt. Then it was gone. The courier who disappeared 2 weeks ago, Luca said. We assumed he'd run off with some money of his own. He didn't run, I said. He was stabbed and left to die because he found out someone was robbing you. Luca steepled his fingers, his amusement fading into something colder. And you came here to, what? Save your brother? Warn me out of the goodness of your heart? I came here because the person stealing from you is planning to expand operations that hurt children, I said. And I won't let that happen. The room went quiet. Vittorio's face had gone carefully blank. Luca's eyes were on me now, really seeing me for the first time. Children, he repeated. The trafficking routes, I said. Warehouse purchases. Transit schedules. It's all in the data. Whoever's stealing from you is using your money to fund an expansion of human trafficking operations. Kids, specifically. That's a serious accusation, Luca said quietly. It's a true one, I said. And I can prove every word. Vittorio shifted, and I saw his hand move toward his jacket. Luca saw it too. Vittorio, he said softly. Be still. Then he looked at me. You said you're a security consultant. You're also overweight, clearly out of your depth, and making accusations that could get you killed. Why should I believe anything you're saying? And there it was. The thing that had followed me my entire life. My weight mentioned like it was proof of my incompetence. Like my body size made my intelligence questionable. Because, I said, keeping my voice level, fat girls learn to be smart when the world decides we're not worth looking at. We learn to pay attention. To see patterns. To work twice as hard because people like you assume we're worth half as much. Something flickered in his expression. Not quite shame. But recognition. Show me your proof, he said. I laid out the documents. Account numbers. Transfer dates. The shell company names that all tied back to one signature, Vittorio Castellano. Luca read in silence. The only sound was pages turning and Vittorio's increasingly heavy breathing. This is fabricated, Vittorio said finally. She's come here to drive a wedge between us. Probably working for Moretti or the Russians. Then explain these signatures, Luca said, his voice deadly calm. Explain why accounts I've never heard of have your name attached. Forgeries, Vittorio said. Obviously. The encryption keys match, I said. Every account uses the same base algorithm. I can prove they all came from the same source. Your cousin's computers. Luca's eyes hadn't left Vittorio's face. $8 million, he said. Over 2 years. And you thought I wouldn't notice. Luca, listen to me, Vittorio started. Get out, Luca said. What? Get out of my office. Out of my building. Don't contact anyone in this organization. Don't access any accounts. Don't make me repeat myself. Vittorio's face went red. You're believing this fat lying woman over me? Your own blood? I'm believing evidence, Luca said. And calling her fat doesn't make the numbers wrong. It just makes you sound desperate. He nodded to the 2 guards. Escort Vittorio out. Keep him under watch. No one is to speak with him until I say otherwise. They dragged Vittorio out, his protests echoing down the hallway. The door closed. Luca and I were alone. You're either very brave or very stupid, he said. Probably both, I admitted. Vittorio will try to kill you now, he said. He'll try to kill you first, I countered. You're the one who just humiliated him in front of witnesses. He almost smiled. Fair point. He stood and walked to the window, looking out over the city. I didn't believe you at first. The accusation was too perfect. Too convenient. And you didn't fit what I expected. Because I'm fat, I said flatly. Because you're an outsider, he corrected. But yes, also because you don't look like someone who'd have this kind of information. Which was stupid of me. Appearances have nothing to do with capability. Most people don't figure that out, I said. Most people are idiots, he replied. He turned back to me. Your brother. Where is he? Safe. Hidden. Keep him that way. Vittorio will come for him the moment he has the chance. What are you going to do? I asked. Verify everything you've told me, he said. Then I'm going to dismantle my cousin's operations piece by piece. And then I'm going to hand him to the authorities with enough evidence to put him away for the rest of his life. Just like that? I said, not quite believing it. Just like that, he confirmed. I don't tolerate theft. And I sure as hell don't tolerate anyone using my name to hurt children. He walked back to his desk and pulled out a card. This is my private number. If Vittorio or anyone associated with him comes near you or your family, you call me immediately. Why would you protect me? I asked. Because you came here when you didn't have to, he said. You could have sent this information anonymously. Could have let me fall and figured the feds would sort it out. Instead, you walked into a building full of armed men and told a mafia boss that his cousin was stealing from him. That takes either courage or insanity, and I respect both. I took the card. Our fingers brushed for a second. Thank you, I said quietly. Don't thank me yet, he replied. Vittorio's not going to go down without a fight. The next few weeks are going to be dangerous. For both of us. He was right. The war started that night. I was walking to my car in the parking garage beneath his building when the first attempt happened. Two men, neither of whom I recognized, emerged from behind a concrete pillar. Sophia Moretti, one of them asked. I ran. Didn't think. Didn't try to reason. Just ran toward the exit, heels clicking on concrete, breath coming in gasps. They were faster. One grabbed my arm, spinning me around. The other pulled out a knife. Vittorio says hello, he said. Then his head snapped back and he crumpled. Luca stood behind him, gun in hand, expression cold. Touch her again and I'll put the next one between your eyes instead of your shoulder, he said calmly. The second man raised his hands and backed away. Luca's security team materialized from nowhere, surrounding us. Get her out of here, Luca ordered. Take her somewhere safe. And find out who these two work for. One of his men, a huge guy named Angelo, guided me to a different car. We're taking you to a safe house, he said. Boss's orders. I need to check on my brother, I said. Already being handled, Angelo replied. Boss sent a team to move him and your mother to a secure location. They'll be fine. The safe house was a condo in a building that probably cost more per month than I made in a year. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Modern furniture. A kitchen I could never afford to stock. And two guards outside the door. Luca arrived an hour later. You're bleeding, I said, noticing the cut on his knuckles. One of them fought back before we got information, he said dismissively. They were Vittorio's men. He's making his move faster than I expected. I'm sorry, I said. For what? For bringing this to you. For making you a target in your own organization. He looked at me like I'd said something absurd. Sophia, you didn't make me a target. Vittorio did that when he started stealing. You gave me a chance to fight back. He sat down across from me, suddenly looking tired. The FBI moves in 3 days, he said. Vittorio leaked information to accelerate their timeline. He's trying to get me arrested before I can expose him. Can you stop it? I asked. Maybe. If I give them everything you gave me, plus what my people have found in the last 6 hours. But it means cooperating with federal authorities. It means potentially taking a deal that puts me under their watch for years. But you'd be alive, I said. And Vittorio would be stopped. Yes, he said. Though being alive under federal supervision isn't exactly freedom. It's more freedom than prison, I pointed out. Or death. He almost smiled. You have a practical way of looking at things. I've had to be practical my whole life, I said. People who look like me don't get to be idealistic. We have to see the world as it is, not as we wish it were. He studied me for a long moment. I misjudged you. When you walked into my office, I saw someone who didn't belong. Someone I could dismiss. I was wrong. Most people are, I said, trying to keep the bitterness out of my voice. Most people aren't trying to survive what I'm trying to survive, he said. And they don't have your help. The next 72 hours were chaos. Luca's accountants confirmed everything I'd found. His lawyers put together a deal with the FBI, full cooperation on Vittorio's crimes in exchange for immunity on the theft charges and reduced oversight on his legitimate business operations. Vittorio didn't go quietly. He tried to rally loyalists within the organization. Tried to paint Luca as weak for trusting an outsider. Tried to have me killed 3 more times. Each time, Luca's people stopped it. On the 3rd day, federal agents raided Vittorio's properties simultaneously. They found everything: the shell company records, the trafficking routes, bank accounts with millions in stolen money, communications with corrupt officials, evidence of crimes that would put him away for life. Vittorio was arrested on 17 counts including racketeering, human trafficking, money laundering, and attempted murder. The news covered it like a mob war, which I guess it was. But what they didn't cover, what only a few people knew, was that the evidence had come from a fat girl with a thumb drive and enough anger to walk into a lion's den. Luca called me the day after Vittorio's arrest. "It's done," he said. "He's in federal custody. The trafficking operations have been shut down. The children are safe." "Good," I said, feeling something loosen in my chest. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For saving my life. For stopping something I should have seen myself. For being brave enough to walk into my office when you had every reason to run the other way." "I didn't do it for you," I said honestly. "I know," he replied. "You did it for the children. Which makes it even more remarkable." There was a pause. Then he said, "I'd like to see you. Not about business. Just to see you." My heart did something complicated. "Why?" "Because I can't stop thinking about the woman who walked into my office carrying evidence that saved my empire and called me out for judging her appearance. Because I want to know more about someone that brave, that smart, that unwilling to back down." "I'm not a mafia wife," I said. "I'm not asking you to be," he said. "I'm asking for coffee. Or dinner. Or just a conversation without guards and guns." I thought about it. About the man who'd laughed at me and then protected me. Who'd admitted he was wrong. Who'd listened when it mattered. "1 coffee," I said. "That's all I'm promising." "That's all I'm asking," he replied. We met at a small cafe in a neighborhood where neither of us would be recognized. He showed up in jeans and a sweater, looking more human than he had in his office. "You look different," I said. "Less terrifying," he agreed. "That's the goal." We talked for 3 hours. About everything. His childhood in a family that valued violence over everything. My years learning to be invisible because being visible meant being hurt. His realization that the empire he'd inherited was built on suffering he couldn't undo but could try to minimize. My work helping companies secure their systems while never feeling secure myself. "I spent my whole life being judged for my body," I said at one point. "Being told I was worth less because I took up more space. And then you laughed when I walked into your office, and it confirmed everything I'd always believed about myself." "I'm sorry," he said. "For laughing. For judging. For being exactly the kind of person who makes the world harder for people like you." "People like me," I repeated. "People who are brilliant and brave and don't fit into neat categories that make others comfortable," he said. "People who force you to reconsider everything you thought you knew." I looked at him across the coffee cups. "This is weird," I said. "I know," he agreed. "You're a criminal. I'm a computer nerd. We shouldn't work." "We shouldn't," he agreed. "But we do. And somehow, impossibly, we did." It wasn't a fairy tale. There was no dramatic transformation, no magical moment where everything was perfect. I didn't lose weight. He didn't stop being a man with a complicated relationship with the law. But over the following months, something grew between us. Built on honesty. On respect. On the knowledge that we'd both misjudged each other and been willing to admit it. He introduced me to his legitimate business operations, the real estate developments and investment firms that existed separate from the criminal empire he was slowly dismantling. I helped him build security systems that couldn't be corrupted. Protected the parts of his world that actually helped people. My brother Marco recovered. Got a job in one of Luca's legitimate companies, far away from anything illegal. My mother stopped asking when I was going to find a nice man and started asking if Luca was treating me right. The answer was complicated. He wasn't perfect. Neither was I. But he saw me. Really saw me. Not my body. Not my appearance. Not the things the world had taught me made me less than. He saw the woman who'd walked into his office carrying evidence and courage in equal measure. The woman who'd refused to back down. The woman who'd saved him not because she wanted something from him, but because children needed protection. 1 year after that first meeting, we were sitting in his office. The same office where he'd laughed at me. Where I'd laid out evidence of his cousin's betrayal. Where our strange, complicated relationship had begun. I was thinking, he said. Dangerous, I replied. He smiled. I want you to run security for all my legitimate operations. Not as a consultant. As a partner. Full equity. Full authority. I stared at him. Why? Because you're the best at what you do, he said. Because I trust you. And because I want you by my side in every way that matters. Even though I'm fat, I said. It wasn't a question. It was a test. Especially because you're you, he replied. And if anyone ever makes you feel less than because of your body, they'll answer to me. But more importantly, they'll answer to you. Because you're stronger than any of them will ever be. I looked at this man who'd dismissed me, protected me, learned from me, and somehow fallen for me. This complicated, damaged man who was trying to build something better from the ruins of his family's empire. Yes, I said. To the partnership. To working together. To all of it. He stood and crossed to me, pulling me up from my chair. And to us, he asked. To us, I agreed. When he kissed me, there were no cameras, no judgments, no world telling me I didn't deserve this. Just two people who'd found each other in the chaos. Who'd misjudged and been misjudged. Who'd learned that worth has nothing to do with appearance and everything to do with courage, intelligence, and the willingness to fight for what matters. The fat girl he'd laughed at had become the woman he couldn't live without. And the Mafia boss who'd dismissed her had become the man who saw her completely. Not in spite of who she was, but because of it. The world still judged me. People still stared. Comments still came. But I had something now that I'd never had before. Someone who looked at me and saw everything I'd always been. Someone who'd learned that the most dangerous thing you can do is underestimate a woman who's spent her whole life being underestimated. Luca Castellano had laughed at me once. He'd never make that mistake again. Can you fall in love with someone who initially judged you for the very thing society taught you to hate about yourself? Share your thoughts in the comment and do remember to hit the subscribe button, like and share this story, and I'll see you in the next one.